I understand that you're looking for a more detailed, extended version of the story with deeper narrative and character exploration. Below is a re-VY said, longer version of the story, maintaining the same structure but with enhanced emotional depth and more VYVYD imagery, as requested. It was a calm, almost eerie evening when I received the call. The kind of night where everything seems still, as if the universe itself is holding its breath. I just wrapped up a long day at the office when my phone buzzed, the sharp ringtone cutting through the silence. My heart immediately sank as I saw the name on the screen. Alex, the voice on the other end of the line said, but I could tell something was wrong before the words came out. You need to come down to Harmony Park. Now. It's bad. Real bad. I could already feel the chill creeping up my spine, a premonition that I wasn't ready to face. My name is Alex Finch, and I'm the Director of Federal Urban Safety. For the past year, I've been overseeing a project that meant more to me than any other. Harmony Park, the beacon of inclusion we had worked so hard to create. A space for children with disabilities, a place where no one would feel left out, a place where joy was the only thing that mattered. But tonight, something was horribly wrong. I slammed the car into gear and sped down the road, the tires screeching as they gripped the pavement. Every mile felt like an eternity as I raced towards the park, my mind already conjuring up every worst-case scenario. The city was buzzing with the usual noise, the streetlights casting long shadows across the road, but my thoughts were miles away, consumed by the growing knot in my stomach. The closer I got, the heavier the air felt. There was a tension in the atmosphere. Something bad had happened. I could feel it in my bones. When I rounded the final corner of Pine Ridge Drive, I saw it. The glow. That sinister flicker of orange light, unmistakable and terrifying, rising above the line of oak trees. The park was on fire. My foot pressed harder on the gas as my pulse quickened. I could smell the smoke before I even saw it. I knew what was happening before I even arrived. The playground I had spent months designing, the space that represented so much hope, was burning to the ground. The very place we had worked so tirelessly to create for children with special need, now a pile of ashes. I pulled up to the entrance, the scene unfolding before my eyes like a nightmare. The bright, vibrant colors of the swings, ramps, and sensory panels were now nothing but charred skeletons, warped and unrecognizable. The fire was furious, devouring everything in its path, and all I could do was stand there for a moment, rooted to the spot, my mind unable to comprehend the destruction. My hand shook as I pulled the car into park, but I didn't wait for the engine to even stop before I was out the door, running toward the wreckage. I could see the parents across the street, their faces ashen, tears streaking down their soot-stained cheeks as they huddled together, holding their children tightly. The sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with every second, but the sight before me felt like a slow-motion tragedy. I saw Lily, the little girl with bright pink hearing aids, who adored the tactile maze that had once been part of the playground. Her face, usually full of mischievous grins, was now streaked with black tears of soot, her eyes wide with terror. She buried herself in her mother's arms, unable to understand what was happening. Not far off, Mateo, a boy of only 8, who had loved the elevated sand tables, his wheelchair giving him the freedom to play independently for the first time in his life, was standing frozen. His fists were clenched so tightly, his knuckles turning white as he stared at the destruction, unable to comprehend the horror unfolding before him. This was not just any playground. It was a sanctuary for kids who had never had a place to be free, to simply be themselves without limitations. It was a dream realized. And now it was nothing more than a smoldering ruin. I felt something dark and heavy settle in my chest. The devastation wasn't just physical. It was personal. This playground had been a labor of love, something I had fought for, something we had all fought for. I could already hear the whispers of blame. The weight of this tragedy, of the family's heartbreak, was a burden I would carry for the rest of my life. But in that moment, one thing was clear: this wasn't an accident. The fire was too vicious, too controlled. The unmistakable smell of accelerant lingered in the air, cutting through the other smells of burning wood and plastic. This was arson. Someone had set this fire deliberately. I felt rage begin to boil inside me. I couldn't explain it. I didn't even know how to channel it, but I knew one thing for certain. Whoever did this was going to pay. They had destroyed more than just a park. They had shattered the hope of an entire community, and I was going to find out who was responsible. The investigation began quickly. We pulled in everyone: local police, fire marshals, and even federal investigators. This wasn't just a crime against property. It was an attack on something bigger, something far more important. It didn't take long before all signs pointed to one person: Agnes Blackwood. She was a resident of Willow Creek Estates, the affluent, gated community that bordered Harmony Park. And from the moment we'd announced the plans for the playground, she had been one of its fiercest critics. At first, I thought she was just another vocal NIMBY, not in my backyard, active YSD, concerned about property values. But as I dug deeper, I realized there was something darker at play. Agnes Blackwood was no stranger to power, influence, and PRIV. She had been wielding her status in Willow Creek to campaign against the playground for months. She called it a blight on the neighborhood. To her, it was more than just a playground, it was a threat to her perfect world. I remembered the town hall meeting. Agnes had stood up, her gaze cold and disdainful as she spoke about the potential risks the playground posed. She talked about the undesirable elements the park would bring into the neighborhood, about how it would attract crime and lower property values. It was the kind of rhetoric that only someone who had never had to fight for something, who had never known what it felt like to be excluded, could make. At the meeting, I could see the way her words were affecting the crowd. Some of the residents nodded along, their expressions mirroring her concerns. I tried to speak out in defense of the park, but Agnes had already planted the seed of fear. She wasn't just an opponent. She was a for sale woman with power and resources, and I had no idea just how far she was willing to go to get what she wanted. In the weeks that followed, the attacks on the park became more direct. Vandalism, harassment, a constant stream of small incidents designed to wear down the families, to make them feel unwelcome. But nothing prepared me for what came next. The fire. It was like everything we had worked for was torn from us in one swift, brutal moment. The flames that consumed the park were fueled by more than just accelerant. They were fueled by something personal, something deeply rooted in Agnes's fear and hatred. And it wasn't just about property values. It wasn't until later that I realized the full extent of Agnes's motives. She had been eyeing a lucrative land deal, an undeveloped parcel of her property that she was hoping to sell to a luxury condominium developer. The project would have been worth millions. But there was a problem. The park. The park sat right in front of the land she wanted to sell, blocking the panoramic view of the estate. Agnes had always cared more about the view than the people who used the park. She didn't want a community space, she wanted money. And she was willing to destroy everything, burn it all to the ground, just to make sure her precious land deal went through. It was chilling when I learned that. And it became clear this wasn't just about an argument over a playground. This was about greed. This was about power. And this was about one woman's twisted sense of superiority. The investigation slowly started to unravel the truth. Agnes had been meticulous in covering her tracks, but the evidence was undeniable. From the drone footage capturing her pouring accelerant on the playground to her suspicious behavior or the night of the fire, everything pointed back to her. And then there were the search histories on her computer, searches about how to disable security cameras and information on accelerants that would be hard to trace. It was over for her. There was no escaping the truth. Agnes Blackwood was arrested, and the press conference that followed was the moment everything came to a head. I stood there, watching as her world crumbled. She tried to act shocked, appalled by the accusations, but I could see the cracks in her facade. Her carefully constructed image of the perfect homeowner, the guardian of Willow Creek, was shattered in an instant. The families of the children who had loved the park were there, too. Maria Rodriguez, the mother who had watched her son thrive in the park, stepped forward. She was shaking with emotion, but she stood tall. Agnes didn't just burn down a playground, she said. She burned down our children's dreams. The courtroom trial that followed was long and drawn out. Agnes's defense team threw everything they had at the case, attacking witnesses, discrediting the evidence, but it was no use. The drone footage, the testimony from those who had seen her at the crime scene, and the financial motives were too much. Agnes was convicted on multiple charges, and when she was sentenced, the judge didn't hold back. She was sent to a federal penitentiary, stripped of everything she had worked so hard to accumulate. Her name would forever be associated with infamy and greed. But the real story was the rebuilding of Harmony Park. The community came together, stronger than ever. Donations poured in from across the state, from all over the country. We rebuilt the park not just to restore what was lost, but to make it even better, even more accessible, more inclusive. The grand reopening was nothing short of magical. The park was reborn. And Agnes? She surveying her sentence, far away from the people she tried to destroy. But the park is alive again, filled with laughter, hope, and the kind of inclusion that no one, not even someone as powerful as Agnes Blackwood, can take away. So now, as I stand at the edge of this VY Brant space, watching children play and learn, I realize that the real power lies not in money, not in property, but in people, in communities, in unity, and in the unwavering belief that every child deserves a place to be safe, to be free, and to simply be themselves. The fire that tried to destroy it all was just the beginning. From the ashes, something stronger, more beautiful, emerged. And no one knows what could take that away from us. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Agnes's actions? Was the punishment just? What does justice look like in this case? Do you believe in the power of community? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going.